HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth with your host, Diane Helbig. Diane is a leading small business development and leadership coach, author, and speaker who is passionate about sharing valuable ideas, tips, and techniques with business professionals worldwide. Diane brings you the world's experts and gurus in all things business, whether it's sales, structure, social media, planning, or plateauing. Guests bring their expertise and energy to each episode. When growing your business is your focus, Accelerate Your Business Growth is the show to listen to. Got a topic or guest suggestion? Let Diane know. The goal is to make sure you have the information you need to move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Settle in and enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Today's podcast is sponsored by Audible.com. We are offering you a free trial. You can go to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth and sign up for that trial. And then, of course, listen to the audiobooks, but also explore the other content that is available to you. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised if you haven't been there already. Over the years, this podcast has gained recognition as a great resource for small business owners, business leaders, sales professionals. We are fortunate to be included on lists of the best podcasts to listen to for varieties of reasons, and that's because of the guests. These are folks who have expertise in particular areas of business, and they join me for a conversation where they share that expertise with all of you. Today, we are in luck. My guest today is Ruth King. Ruth is president of Business Ventures Corporation. Well known as the Profitability Master, Ruth has a passion for helping small businesses grow profits and wealth. After 12 years on the road, she knew there had to be a better way to reach business people. She began the first television-like broadcast in 2002, launching her own TV channel. Ruth is also the author of a new book called Profit or Wealth: Simple Rules for Sustainable Business Growth. Thanks so much for joining me today, Ruth.
Thank you for having me, Diane. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. And we're going to be talking today, and it's such an important topic, we're going to be talking today about salvaging 2020 profitably, which, yeah. So,
yes, I'm kidding.
Right? I know. Let's all take a deep breath. Okay. So, but I want to start with these rules of business wealth that you have discovered. And first, I'm curious how you discovered them, and then I'm wondering if you would share 3 of those rules.
Okay. I have been working with small businesses since 1981. And so over the years, consulting with them, giving them the tools and processes to grow profitably, I really realized a lot of them did not build the wealth and just build profits. And I've seen several business owners who were incredibly profitable go out of business. And probably there were a lot more this year simply because of COVID. If you have, more than 20% of your eggs in one basket, you have the likelihood of going out of business if you don't build the wealth, even if you're profitable. I had one of my clients who had 80% of his business in restaurants at the start of the pandemic. And he was like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. And had he not pivoted and found other industries who were not, who were considered essential, right, he would have been out of business too. Very profitable, but, COVID has shown us that profits do not matter as much as building wealth. I've had many other of my clients either call me or send me an email that basically says, thank you for making us put money away. And we can talk about how easy that is, simply because I have X number of dollars in the bank, I have a line of credit for Y, and I can survive anything. And that's the idea for building wealth. And the reality is if you're profitable and you don't build wealth, the likelihood is that you can still go out of business. So that's a long answer to your question about how I got this done. But one of the biggest rules of wealth is to pay attention to your balance sheet, because your P&L tells you profits, obviously, but your balance sheet actually tells you whether you have continued profits or profitability. And your balance sheet is more important than your P&L. Yet most business owners don't understand their balance sheets, but it's really easy. It's not hard. It's, accounting was developed by the Venetian monks because they had to take care of the rich Italians' money back 1200, 1300, whatever it is. And they ended up having to make it really easy because they didn't have QuickBooks. They didn't have a calculator. They had to do it by hand, addition and subtraction.
Oh, right. Hand and feet, right?
Yeah, we got it.
20, right?
Yeah. And Diane, before you tell me that the Chinese had abacuses, which they did at that point, they weren't talking to the Italians, so the Italians didn't have the opportunity to use an abacus.
It's so funny too, because the abacus is exactly what came into my mind when you were talking about that. Yeah. Apparently it comes into everybody's mind.
Does. It absolutely does. But they didn't talk to each other back then, so we couldn't use them, or they couldn't use them. It was literally pen and paper.
Wow.
And nothing's changed in almost 1,000 years.
That's
so
amazing.
The reality is it was easy. It still is easy. You just have to, spend, 30 minutes or so, maybe an hour, and figure out what it's telling you. And it's not hard. I mean, read a book, go to a class.
But why don't small business owners? Because this really is an issue.
Yeah. Think about, none of us, including me, when I first started our businesses to do the financial side of business. Come on.
True.
We have products we wanted to sell and services we wanted to provide, and accounting and bookkeeping were the last things on our mind. And until you get into trouble, till you can't make payroll, until a customer or a vendor calls you on the phone and says, if I don't have payment by X date, you're not getting, I'm cutting you off type things. You don't start paying attention to your books. Most people don't anyway.
Right.
And it usually takes getting in trouble. That's why, as a general rule, I don't work with startups, simply because they don't know what they don't know yet.
Yeah.
And smart people actually come to a class. I have a class called Making Your Financial Statements Fun and Sexy, and I have an in-person one called Building Profit and Wealth. And they spend a day or 2 days or the online time to do this, and the light bulb goes on, and they never, ever, ever have a problem. They know what they're coming out to. But we also think that accounting and bookkeeping are hard. And
Yes.
I think CPAs have done us a really disservice by making accounting terminology into Greek. You know, we're in the US, you know, in Greece, they probably made it into Chinese. But it really is not hard. It's learning a few terms and then looking at a P&L and balance sheet and saying, what do they actually mean? And doing a little bit of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Nothing more than that. And then they don't understand or don't realize the difference between bookkeeping and financials. I totally agree that they should hire, or all small business people should hire a bookkeeper, simply because you as an owner, or you as the manager, or you as the founder don't need to be doing debits and credits and doing the day-to-day bookkeeping stuff. Let's leave it at that.
Right.
And however, you cannot abdicate the responsibility for looking at your financial statements every single month. Takes you less than a half hour a month to look at them, do what you need to do, and make good business decisions based on accurate data. So there's a difference between the bookkeeping side and the financial side. Get rid of the bookkeeping side because that's not what you do, or shouldn't, you know, unless you're a bookkeeper or CPA, and oversee the financial side, which is the review of profit and loss statements and balance sheets. And that's what will tell you what's going on with your business.
Okay. I think this is so valuable. I remember when the pandemic first hit, that the conversation around small businesses was that because small business owners don't typically put money away, don't save, they didn't have any sort of cushion to even try and figure out what was going on, and to give them the opportunity to even pivot.
That is true. And one of the rules of wealth is to save money. And the easiest way I know of to save money is to save 1% of every dollar that comes in the door. It is not hard to do that. You have to do it, but it's not hard to do it. So if you get a check in the door for $1,000, say, that leaves you $10 goes into savings, and that leaves you $990 to do whatever you're going to do, pay bills, pay payroll, whatever. We can all survive on $990. And you're going, well, $10 is not that much. True. In the individual, it's not. But for every $1,000 you're saving $10, it actually builds up very, very, very quickly. And I will caution everybody, because I've had this happen to a client. When you start getting $40, $50, $100, $200,000 in a savings account, do not go to the big boys or the big girls toy store. It happened. And I was pissed.
Oh, that. What is the thinking there? It's time for a reward. Hey, I have all this money. I mean,
yeah, I had a really phenomenal year. I have a lot of money in savings, and I deserve can I say it?
Sure.
A boat.
A boat. Otherwise known as
Big boy's toy.
Well, that and a hole in the water that you pour money into. I mean, the boat doesn't stop costing money when you buy it.
I understand that.
My God. Wow, a boat.
Very profitable year. Forgot that we were building wealth with it. And so
right.
He realized how much he had to do to repay that money. And the next year was very, very profitable also. And so I called him on the phone and I said, you can do the same thing this year? And he goes, nope, I gave my stupid gene to my competitors. True story.
Well, thank God.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you learned the lesson, right?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
it was a hard lesson to learn because it took him about 3 years to rebuild it.
Oh, wow. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So that's one of the rules of wealth is just, save money. Take 1%, put it away. Do not go to the big boys toy store or big girls' toy store, because I'm sure
Right.
there are women stories like that too.
Sure.
I just don't
Sure.
have any.
Yeah. That's okay. We'll just assume that there are some. I think that's a great rule and so doable.
Yeah.
Really sort of silly not to. I mean, my gosh.
But yeah, there were two things that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. Number one was that small business owners had not saved money. Okay. Most of my clients did not fall into that. Number two was small business owners didn't have good financial statements, because to get your PPP money, you needed good financial statements and, tax returns and all the other fun things like that. And if you didn't have good financial statements, you probably didn't get a PPP loan. So it was very easy to apply, because here's 2 years of P&Ls and balance sheets. Here's up to February, it's done. And here's our tax returns, and it's done. I mean, it's like, send it in, and they got approved, So, when small business owners hopefully learn from this, number one, and number two is, who knows, I hope it never, ever happens again, obviously, but
Yeah.
if we're in a situation where you have to get P&Ls and balance sheets to somebody really quickly and they're not accurate, I mean, what are they going to say?
Yeah. No. Right. I'm going to take a quick sponsor break, and then I have some more questions for you. Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is happy to be sponsored by Audible.com. Audible.com is a leading provider of spoken digital audio entertainment and information. They have thousands of titles to choose from, as well as podcasts, Audible originals, guided meditations, and more. One of my favorite audiobooks is Everyone Deserves a Great Manager by Scott Miller. For me, I love being able to listen to it anywhere and across my devices without losing my place. And I think you will too. So visit audibletrial.com/businessgrowth to explore the variety of audiobooks and programs for yourself. All right. So is there a way that small businesses can insulate themselves, like, from further economic fallout because of the pandemic?
Yeah, here's what I've asked and suggested to my clients and others is, number one is to look at your customer lists. I will bet that there are many, many customers who are on your list versus how many customers are actually actively doing business with you. So one of the easy things to do is to reactivate your inactive customers. And I define an inactive customer as somebody who hasn't used your company's services in 18 months. Okay. See what you can do to get them back. And what I would do with current customers is say, how are you doing? Can we help now? And just, keep in touch, because everybody's going crazy. And, if you can just keep it in touch and make it from a perspective of, letting them know that you care, the likelihood is that they'll come back at some point in time. Restaurants, who knows, but it's interesting for those of the people that I've worked with who've taken the reactivating the inactive customers to heart, and it's amazing how much work they're doing just from inactive customers that they hadn't talked to. Many of them had said, "Oh, I thought you went out of business. You don't talk to me for a year." Yeah.
I'm so glad that you said that. I know, like, at the beginning of the pandemic, people were saying to me, well, I mean, can I really sell? It just feels insensitive. I don't know what's going on. And my response was, okay, because my belief is stop thinking about selling. Could you just reach out to people and see how they're doing and see what's going on with them and what do they need and how's the pandemic hitting them personally and business wise? And right, because
Absolutely.
if you're not in front of them, your competition is.
Yep.
So don't let, and one guy even said to me that he wished he had been in better contact with his customers before the pandemic, because he would have been able to have better conversations with them when it hit.
Yeah. I will give you what had happened to two owners that I know of that are restaurant owners. One of them owns the oldest steakhouse in Florida, happens to be in Palm Beach. And the other one I think is in Michigan. I think he's in Michigan. Well, anyway, both of them had had 4-figure email lists when the pandemic hit. So they kept in touch with their customers. They obviously did things from a perspective of switching from in-person dining to delivery. And they all had specials every week that somebody could take advantage of. They all talked to them. It was amazing how well they pivoted from an in-person dining experience to an experience that they could have in their homes.
Oh.
And they had built up the customer base to be able to do it. Both of them did it. One of them is a huge, and he probably would hate me saying it, but it's a pizza company, but they do cool pizzas. It's not like your Domino's or your, Papa John's or one of those. They were really cool. They had vegetarian pizza, and they had gluten-free pizza, and they had all these different pizza pies and stuff like that. I mean, cool stuff. But they did the same thing, and they took their servers, and I don't know what the insurance things were, but they actually turned them into the delivery people. So they still do DoorDash or, Uber or whatever else it is, right. But they also gave people the opportunity to say, would you like one of our normal servers to come and deliver your pizza or deliver your meal or whatever else like that? And a lot of people said yes.
Wow.
Because they felt, bad for the waitresses and the waiters, it's like, So, I mean, if you do nothing else and you've learned nothing from this pandemic, 2 things. Number one, make sure you build a phenomenal customer base, and Facebook doesn't count because they're not your customers. Instagram doesn't count because they're not your customers. You need an email list. You need to know who your customers are, and you need to build wealth, save some money.
Definitely.
And then there's another thing to building wealth, and it's called recurring revenue. And all of us, I would imagine, have some form of recurring revenue that we pay every month. We pay our cell phone bills every month. My daughter pays one of her video games every month. If you do software as a service, you're recurring revenue, and you pay a support fee every month or every year. We all do something where we have somebody ding our credit cards or our checking account every single month. So the creative thing to do is to figure out what you can do, obviously, to help your customers every month, but also provide them a service or a product every month. And I'll give you a really crazy example. My daughter is very creative. She is such an opposite of me. It's not funny. She's lighting, sound design, all that sort of fun stuff. Hates math. All right. I'm exactly the opposite. I'm, this numbers person and everything else like that. So the pandemic really and truly shut down her industry. Think about it. There was no TV production. There was no movie production. Theater is still closed in New York.
Right.
So, I mean, it really did. So she was they were working on a couple animation projects that hopefully will come out this year. And I was sitting in a room one morning or one afternoon, and I said, Kate, what are you working on? She goes, a budget, which she absolutely hates. And I said, well, financial statements can be fun. And she goes, no, they can't. And so the gauntlet is down, right? So I created Ronan the Rubber Duck Dives into Financials. All right. Fun, whimsical way to look at the world. I'm like, okay, what can I create as recurring revenue for a rubber duck who does bathtubs, right? I mean, it's crazy. So what I created for him was bubble bath and bath soaps that you send to a customer every single month. So you join their recurring revenue program. I forget what I called it, but we send you luxury bubble bath for your kids and luxury soaps that you can choose from every single month. And so that's a recurring revenue that kept that company, it's a fictitious company.
Yeah.
But the reality was, what does a bathtub guy do? Well, that was the only thing I could think of.
I love it. It's a great idea. It's this level of creativity that people need to embrace, right? We need to look and say what else is needed or desired. How can we engage?
Yeah. And if you talk to your customers every month, they'll tell you what they want.
Yeah, no kidding.
They will absolutely tell you what they want, and you create it as a service for them or a product that you send them every month. If you do cakes or bakery items or something along those lines, yeah, probably people can't come into your bakery right now, but you can send them a cake of the month club or a donut of the month club, or, I'm coming up with crazy things right now, but I think you get the idea.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And what, this is so funny. You're talking about this and I'm thinking, so I have a friend whose family owns a couple of restaurants, and they're like sports bar restaurants. So I keep coming up with ideas of things they can do to get more people to do carry out. Because that's really what's going on. I'm in Ohio and it's winter. And so that's really the thing, and attach it to sports. So, because that's what people know them for, but you got to get a little creative with some of your ideas. That the typical usual isn't necessarily going to work right now.
No, it's not. You have to think out of the box type things, because if you do something really creative like that, and let's assume it's a sports bar and they do wings, and I don't know what they do, but let's assume that they do wings. Maybe you have wings the color of the team they're playing that month or that weekend.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I got these purple wings, or I got these, they're playing the Rams or something like that. Blue wings because I'm playing the Giants, who knows?
Yeah.
But be creative about it. Have fun with it. Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you, because you said before that this one client of yours, I think you said 80% of his business was restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Will you talk some about why it isn't necessarily a good idea, really, to have really more than 20% of your revenue coming from a client or an industry?
Sure. The guy who had 80% of his business in restaurants is a perfect example of when the pandemic hit. I also it was not one of my clients, but I knew him. He had very profitable business for about 10 years. 3 of his major customers, no joke, filed bankruptcy the same week, leaving him holding the bag for more than $1 million in receivables, and he couldn't fund it, and he went out of business too.
Oof.
All right. So my rule is no more than 20% of your 20% of your customers, one customer cannot be more than 20% of your business. One industry cannot be more than 20% of your business. The guy who had the 80%, what he ended up doing was literally on the golf course with his friends. I'm not joking. He did a lot of work on the golf course, and he's in Maine. All right. So it wasn't exactly, very, very warm at that particular time, but they played golf. He found out what they needed, and he found out what his friends needed, and he was able to provide that. So very quickly, the business morphed from restaurants into owners of buildings, into government work too, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it. So you have that issue, but you also have that issue of getting paid on time. So there were some cash flow things that we had to do to make sure that, he got paid so that it didn't kill him, 60 or 90 days later,
Right.
Type thing. But, that's what he ended up doing. He just went to all of his friends who went to his friends who went to his friends, and he started getting referrals and started doing work in every industry that he could find that was not shut down. And that's what he did.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about those companies. Well, I was going to say, let's talk about those companies that went bankrupt, but I don't want.
Let's not do that.
Let's not. And part of the reason is because, okay, so the pandemic, whatever, but in normal times, there are still an awful lot of small businesses that go bankrupt. So how does a small business owner really buffer themselves from ending up going bankrupt in normal times?
And okay, let's assume it's normal times. There's
Okay.
usually two reasons that companies go bankrupt in normal times. Number one, their pricing is wrong. Number two, they can't survive like that one client did the majority, 60%, more than 60% of his business, like 90% of his business going out of business.
Right.
All right. So number one, let's talk about the pricing issues. You have to, everybody needs to understand that pricing is just not, sales minus the cost of making those sales. There's also overhead included in that. And as you grow, growth masks a lot of cash flow problems. I had a client of mine who started a business with a partner and grew the business to $2 million literally. And by looking at their bank account to say, okay, we have money to pay payroll, we can take our discounts, and so we're happy campers. They ended up stalling at $2 million and started having cash flow problems. Not always be able to take their discounts, sometimes having problems meeting payroll. And they knew that wasn't right. And so I got a phone call. Long story short, they were losing a nickel for every dollar they took in the door.
Oof.
All right. You'll never see it when you grow, because the money from one job or one project funds the next one. And as long as there's continued growth, there's continued cash coming in the door. Once the growth stops, it's 5% less than it should be continuously. All right. And that's bad. So make sure your pricing is right, number one, and don't look at your P&Ls and balance sheets by looking at how much money is in your checking account.
Sorry, I just love the way you just said that.
Right here to prove it.
Oh my gosh. I just am having visions of people who I've known over the years who that's what they've done.
Yeah, it's easy to go out of business that way.
Oh gosh, no kidding. No kidding.
Your
And the
P&L
pricing thing, I think a lot of people are so focused on revenue that they're not paying attention to profit margin.
Exactly.
Ugh.
All right, and it's net profit, not gross profit.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
My rule of thumb is this: for every dollar that you take in, if your net profit is, let's say it's $100,000, and there are 10,000 revenue producing hours. It could be the people working on marketing projects. They could be producing product, whatever else it is. You're, $100,000 in net profit, 10,000 hours to produce that $100,000 in profit. You're making $10 net profit per hour. Why are you in business? I can go to a fast food company and make more than $10 an hour.
Yeah.
Why put up with it?
It's a good question. So how should they be looking at it? Does it depend on the industry? Because some industries have really small margins.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're making very little net profit per hour. And if you're happy making $5 net profit per hour, that's fine. But I think if you looked at those very, very large industries, like, and I've never done the calculation on supermarkets because I don't have their billable hours. Their profit margins are like 2 or 3%, but what is that in terms of dollars? Simply because you can't take a percentage to the bank. The only thing you can take to the bank are dollars. So that 2 to 3% of, $10 million might actually be $30 net profit per hour. I don't know.
Right, that's right.
So don't look at the percentage. I mean, look at the actual dollars, because that's what you can really bank on. Not, two guys could each be earning 10%. And I've seen this. One guy's net profit per hour was about $12 an hour, and the other one was 50. Which would you rather be?
Yeah, well, 50.
Yeah, but they both had
Just so
10%
we're clear.
net.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of companies out there who are oddly thriving through the pandemic because they're essential.
Mm-hmm.
is there, I wanted to say, are there warnings that you would give them? I mean, is there like advice that you would give them about things they should be doing right now? Because that isn't necessarily going to last forever.
That's true. Save 1% of every dollar that comes in the door. Make sure your pricing is where you want it to be.
Okay. That seems like anyone could wrap their head around that. That's pretty easy or
It is.
simple, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's simple. It's not necessarily easy to do.
Right.
You just have to do it. It's very simple to do.
Right. Right. Okay. And you gotta know your numbers.
You gotta know your numbers.
Oh, okay.
It's
Boy,
not hard.
it's not that hard. Well, says you.
Well, remember the difference between financials and bookkeeping. I don't expect anybody who's a business
Yeah.
owner, unless they're a bookkeeper, to do the bookkeeping. They have to understand what the numbers are telling them, though. And you can read Profit or Wealth or The Courage to Be Profitable, which was my first book of the series. Go take, get online and go take a class. I mean, there's so many easy ways to get it, and it's just spending an hour or two to get it. And once you have that knowledge, it never goes away.
Okay. Will you, I just thought of something. Will you talk to us some about debt? Because,
Okay.
what I hear is, some debt is good, but I think there's value in hearing from you about what you think is a sound debt strategy.
Okay. There's two types of debt. There is what I call total debt, and there is long-term debt. So the total debt is all of your payables, all of your tax payments, and all those types of things. So that's your current liabilities, everything that you've got to pay within a year. And then there's long-term liabilities, which are things that you've saddled your company with that are longer than a year. A car note, a truck note. If you buy equipment on a loan or something along those lines, a building, that type of thing. So the ratios that I use is there's a ratio called the current ratio, which is current assets, which is things that are cash or turned into cash within a year, and divide that by current liabilities, which are things that have to be paid within a year. And both of these numbers are on your balance sheet. And that number it has to be at least 1, should be increasing. Depending upon your industry, it may end up being 1.5 or 2, but it should always be increasing, which means that your profitability is increasing most of the time. The long-term debt, which is what you've saddled your company with, should be somewhere between 0 and 1. The long-term debt divided by equity should be somewhere between 0 and 1. And then you don't have too much debt that you can't actually pay it in most cases. So, I mean, I don't think debt is necessarily bad. I mean, if you go out and get a truck loan for, let's say, $500 a month, but as a result of that truck loan, that truck can earn you $10,000 a month. Why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
Now, if you're going out and buying that stupid boat.
Oh, we're back to the boat. Okay.
That's dumb debt.
Yes, that would be dumb. But that's not a business expense. Let's be clear.
Well,
unless you're a captain or something.
Yeah, that was taking money out of the business.
Right.
To do something dumb.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
I agree.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Expensive lesson.
Oh, no kidding. Well, I guess as long as he learned it.
Yeah.
Right.
It was expensive.
Yeah, I'll say. And what, you may have said this already, so I apologize if you did and I didn't quite catch it, but what is a cash flow budget?
Okay. I did not mention cash flow budget. Cash flow budget looks at incoming and outgoing cash. And I'm going to do it on a weekly basis because that's generally what happens. And then you can do it on a monthly basis and forecast. But generally if you imagine a tank, and instead of the tank having water in it, a tank has cash in it. And there's a spigot on top that you open to get more cash, and the level of cash in the tank rises. And then there's a drain on the bottom that you open up and the level of cash decreases. All right. So getting cash in the door is by collections. It's not the sale, it's the collection. So, you get it from collecting money for the work that you did. You might get, 2 cents of interest, from a savings account or something along those lines. You might sell an asset, which often doesn't happen very often. You might take money out from a line of credit or a loan. That's how also you get money in. But generally, it is from collections on sales. All right. So, January 1 at 12:01 a.m., there's a certain level of cash in this tank. We open up the spigot during the month of January or the week of January 1st. We get money in and the level of cash rises. And so the end of the month or the end of the week is done, close the spigot. And then we get to pay our bills. So we open up this drain and we take out for payroll, we take out for rent, we take out for the utility bills, we take out to pay our suppliers, and the level of cash, the level of cash in the tank goes down and down and down. You got to close that spigot and have at least a penny left in your checking account or you're in trouble. So that's cash flow. And then where you start that month, again, you open the spigot on top and you let cash in the door from collections, basically, and a few other things. And the level of cash in your tank rises, and then you close it off, and then you pay your bills, and the level of the cash in your tank flows down. And so that's basically a cash flow statement, kind of visually. And then
That's
you just
so
put the
great.
numbers
I
down.
love
on
that
paper.
visual.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just put the numbers down on paper.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That is easy. I like easy. And what's so bizarre is that you're making this sound so easy, and it's accounting. Which,
It's financials. It's not really accounting.
aha.
Accounting is debits and credits. Left side, right side.
Yeah. Yuck.
Yeah, I agree. I hate that piece of it too. I let other people do that. I love the financial side of it. I don't like the accounting side of it. I can do it, but I don't like it.
Right. Well, no one does. But this is so great because this makes it really palatable. Like, just having this conversation, what I'm hearing is anybody really can do this.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal and should, because it gives you that control back instead of your business being in control of itself and doing whatever it's going to do and you not really having an eye on that. Just paying attention to this, it gives you that knowledge that you need to make better decisions.
Yep. Otherwise, it will bite you in the butt. When you least can have it bite you in the butt.
Exactly. So you had said before that looking at the balance sheet once a month, is that the time frame? Would you say, how frequently should a business owner be looking at their financials?
You should have a P&L and balance sheet on your desk from your bookkeeper within 15 days of the end of the month. These days, preferably 10, because everything's online.
Right.
And then you just spend 10 or 15 minutes. When you first get started, it's going to take you half hour to actually review the financials, do the graphs and the ratios. And I mentioned the current ratios. There's 10 of them. And they don't take long. Put them on a graph. That takes you about 5 minutes, and you can see what's going on in your business.
Nice. Totally doable.
Yeah.
Wow. Ruth, I really appreciate this. I am enlightened and not so freaked out about financials. And mine are easy. So, thank you so much for that. So will you tell the listeners not only how they can find you, but how they can get your books and what you've got going on, please?
Okay. All of my books are on Amazon. Profit or Wealth, which is the latest one. And it's Prequel, which is The Courage to be Profitable. And then there are 3 others. You can go there. You can go to the website, that's profitorwealth.com, or you can go to my personal website, which also has everything, which is ruthking.info. You can get to me in any of those ways.
Okay, great. Sorry, I had to write that down. Fabulous. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I think this has been tremendously valuable. And listeners, thank you, man. You really need to listen to this one and really pay attention to it, and then do these things and make sure that you're understanding them, because it really can make a difference. And you can start now, right? There's no time like the present. And I would also like to thank our sponsor. Head on over to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth. Sign up for the free trial and explore all of the content that is available to you there. It is not just audiobooks, though there are thousands of them. And if you are struggling with sales or know someone who is, head on over to your favorite bookstore and pick up a copy of Succeed Without Selling. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
The world's best-known investor and Wall Street expert Warren Buffett once said, "Wall Street is the only place that people ride to in a Rolls-Royce to get advice from those who take the subway." Mr. Buffett's quote is remarkably accurate, but how many people would rather receive advice from him than someone simply guessing? Welcome to Buy, Hold, Sell, your single source for Wall Street knowledge and profitable guidance. Please join me, Todd Schoenberger, and fellow trader Tobin Smith, as well as host Veronica Dudo, for a podcast known to move the needle for investors. Tobin and I are seasoned Wall Street executives with deep investment experience, and we are prepared to share our advice to those who choose to listen. Download Buy, Hold, Sell today on the Evergreen Podcast Network or your favorite podcast channel.